I think the hardest part about trying to conceive, and especially when you've been on this journey for a while, is that it completely takes over every single aspect of your life. You slowly realize that trying to have a baby controls everything from what you eat to how you spend your money to all the plans that you thought you had for your future. I felt like I lost myself 1,000 times over on this journey. Some days I didn't even recognize who I was anymore. So how do you get through this chapter of your life without going completely insane? Today I want to share with you exactly what I would do if I wanted to stay sane if I was trying to conceive again in 2026. Because this is what I see working over and over again with all of the women that I work with. Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so that you can stop stressing that you'll never have your baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here and joining me for part 3 of this series. So we talked about a couple of weeks ago what I would be doing if I was trying to conceive this year. And last week we spoke about all the things that I would stop doing. But today we're talking about how I would actually stay sane if I was trying to have a baby again this year. Because trying to conceive, it quietly but very surely becomes all-consuming. And so many people say this to me, and I'm sure you can relate to this. You just get to this point where you don't even recognize who you are. You lose yourself in this process. It takes over your thoughts, your routines, your relationships, and even that sense of identity and who you thought that you were. Somewhere along the way, it stops feeling like you're building a family, and it starts feeling like you've put your entire life on hold and you cannot move forward. So in this episode today, I want to share with you what I would do to protect my own peace, to stay connected to myself, my relationship, to joy, and to make sure that this journey didn't cost me, my whole self. Because you deserve to grow your family without losing yourself in the process. So I want to get straight into it. Here is my list. So I've got the 6 things that I want to go through with you today. So the first thing that I would absolutely prioritize, and I give this advice to anyone, whenever anyone says to me, what is the one piece of advice you would give to someone on their journey, is that I would build a life that is not on hold. And honestly, I just wish that this is something I had done on my darkest days, because I postponed joy. I continued to put things off. I didn't plan things. I wish I had started to live my life again alongside this journey of trying to conceive, as opposed to every little decision that I made being dictated by my fertility journey. Because before you realize it, it has taken over every single part of your life. You're saying no to things with friends. You're avoiding going to restaurants that don't have all of your fertility-friendly diet food options available, or anything else if you're crazy like me, decided that you couldn't eat at that time. Having pizza with your friends is not going to be the end of your fertility that month. But it is really hard to get out of that thinking when nothing else has worked. And you think, well, the more perfect I am, the more I let this journey kind of control me, and the more I do things right, the better the outcome is going to be. And it is really hard in reality to unwind a lot of that. So I want you to start small. Your homework this week is going to be to go through all of the things that you enjoy doing in your life. So what are some of the things that you used to do? Well, when you first met your partner, what were some of the fun things that you used to plan together? What were some of the things that you used to do, before you had a job and before the pressures of real life kind of crept in? And what did you do when you were a kid or as a teenager that really brought you a lot of fun and joy into your life? So it might be something really small. It might be, I used to love cooking, and not necessarily cooking healthy things, baking cakes. Go out and have the ice cream, have that glass of wine. I want you to make a list of all of the things that make you happy and see how many of them you have crossed off from your life. How many of those are you avoiding? And where can you start to bring them back in? And I know that when you are going through a treatment cycle, especially an IVF cycle, you really are dictated by a lot of the appointments and things. So you have to work your life around, well, I need to be available on this date. I can't necessarily go away this weekend, of course. But when I do have that time to myself, what could I be doing with that time that would actually make me really happy? I went to a comedy show for like the first time in years and years a few weeks ago. And just to have a whole evening of laughing, it's not something that we do very often. And gosh, I used to go to those things all the time. I remember we used to have like comedy nights once a week when I was at uni, and we'd all go. And these are things that we forget about and we stop doing. So adding things back into your life that make you feel like you are living your life at the same time. So number 2, if I wanted to stay sane, I would create my Trying to Conceive support toolkit. And I would do that at the very, very beginning. And I talk about this all the time, this idea of finding what makes your nervous system feel good and having this toolkit of things to come back to. This is professionally what I do, and it's all of the work that I do and what I help my students with. But for me, this is basic stuff. So many of the basic things that we overlook, but gosh, they work and they are so important. Things like time outdoors, eating regularly and eating things that make my body feel good, sleep, going to bed at the same time with others. We love to isolate ourselves when we're going through difficult times, and especially when we feel so lonely on the fertility journey and like nobody understands what we're going through. But being in connection with others is essential to being able to regulate our nervous systems. So other things that you may want to think about, some examples that really kind of come into this idea of the toolkit. Have your regulation practices for your 2-week wait. So it's going to be 14 or so days of waiting, symptom spotting, guessing and second guessing yourself. What are the things that you can do in this time that are going to support you? And what are you going to do on day 1 if your period does come? So if you find out that you are not pregnant this cycle and you know that it's going to be a tough thing to have to go through, what are you going to do on that day to support yourself? Because sadly, we do often have to go to work. We do have to show up to things when we really, really, really don't want to. And having that prepared mindset of, okay, well, I've got this that I know I can do to support myself. I've got this person I can speak to. Maybe I can have a word with someone at work. So I've got that support around me. Other things that I can cancel and take off my plate. So knowing in advance what you're going to need to help you at that time. You can have some scripts ready for pregnancy announcements. I know this sounds like a lot of work, but I find it really helps just saying to yourself, okay, and you always know when that person is about to announce their pregnancy. We have this sixth sense about it, don't we? So what are you going to say? Be prepared. And it's really hard not to react in the moment. And I completely get that. But just have those words ready. This is a really exciting time for you guys. And that's enough. That's enough to say. And you can just have that same response if they tell you over text or email or whatever it might be. And just know that that can be your response and you don't have to elaborate or go any further from there. What are you going to do in those moments when, if you do have a negative test this month, what are some little rituals that can help you really lean into supporting your body and your emotions at this time? And I found that these little woo-woo tools really helped me. And I think that is something I hear from a lot of my students, that having these times to be able to sit and cut out some of the noise, to sit in the silence, connect with your spirit baby. Maybe you have a sign or a symbol that you like to refer to that is like your communication point or connection point with your spirit baby, a crystal, a feather, a butterfly, whatever it might be. And just to be able to hold those images and to know that while it might be not this month, it might be not next month, what you want is on the way. So I find sometimes it is these little things that truly do make a difference and help to keep us sane. So number 3, how I would stay sane this year if I was trying to conceive, I would decide in advance how I was going to handle triggers. Now, we can't always plan our response or our reaction to a trigger in the moment, but there are little things that we can do that are going to help us when we are triggered. So, for example, we know that social media is full of triggers. So perhaps this is something we curate, we mute, we switch off, or we delete if possible. But then it's going to be bigger things like, what are you going to do when you see that person who you've been avoiding because they're pregnant, or that person at work that you can't avoid and, they fell pregnant really easily and all they want to do is complain about how they feel. And what are you going to do in those moments? Are you going to have something that you say to them? You're going to remove yourself from the situation. You're going to have a support person who you gently look at and you know that they understand in the moment that you might need a little bit of extra support. How are you going to respond when you are invited to a baby shower or when Mother's Day comes around? What due dates are going to come up? Those due dates that we have that we never ever forget, and I still remember mine. And we know these things are going to be triggering. And I find that it is often the lead up to these things, the anticipation of it, that can be a lot harder than the actual event. So if it isn't something that you can avoid, how are you going to handle it when it happens? Planning ahead before you get into a situation that upsets you can be really empowering. And I know, like I said, it feels like a lot of work, and it is. But I think in the long run, it is very valuable. If you're celebrating Mother's Day with your own mum, maybe get your partner or a sibling that you trust to have a word with everyone if it's a family event, and just agree that baby chat is off the table. You can celebrate your own mother or grandmother within your life without it having to become a focus on when you're going to become a parent as well. And be okay with saying no to events if you need to, and just gently letting someone know that this isn't possible for you right now. And it's not because you're wanting to upset anyone. You wish more than anything you could be there, but it just isn't going to be possible. And people do have to understand that in some particular situations. You are going to upset people sometimes, and if you really can't be there, that is okay. And this leads perfectly into number 4, which is to stay sane on this journey, you really do need to set boundaries. And I know when we talk about boundaries, we usually think of them in terms of other people, setting boundaries with other people. And yes, that is important with family, with friends. Again, sometimes you're going to upset people, but you can be gentle and supportive and graceful about this. But ultimately, you have to protect yourself, and the way that someone reacts is up to them. You can't control that. I really think, though, that you also need to set boundaries with yourself. So setting boundaries with medical advice overload, or just information overload in general. This is where we need to look at where we're getting our information from and asking whether this is helpful or overwhelming. And it's easy now, every second person is an expert, and you have even people who are not really qualified to be giving advice, giving out a lot of advice. And then you get doctors weighing in and saying, well, this is how I feel. And gosh, it's well, who do I believe? So know who are your trusted sources. Should be your doctor if you have one. And if you don't really trust them, then let's shop around. Let's get you that second or third opinion. But just know that information overload isn't helpful. So setting boundaries on yourself with social media, with AI, getting these diagnoses, speaking to various fertility experts that I work with, they find that it is always good to have an open dialogue with their patients and with their clients. But if you are getting that really generalized information from another source and then bringing it to your doctor, they can then offer you that nuance that you need to personalize it to your situation. So just be aware of where you're getting your information and knowing if and when it is relevant for you. So a lot of these times, like I said, these tools can be helpful, but especially if you want to learn more about your condition or your specific situation, this is where you need to be going, to your doctor in particularly. So be so careful about letting these tools and all of these things that we have access to, all this information that we have, making decisions for you. So number 5, I would redefine what progress looked like. Now, if your whole life is defined by whether you get 2 pink lines on a stick at the end of this month, you are setting yourself up to fail over and over again. And we put everything on this. You think that, well, okay, if I'm not pregnant this month, well, I'm behind. I'm not good enough. This is such a difficult thing to go through. And the added pressure of everything is going to be better once I get this test is too much. And I hated feeling this way. I hated it more than anything because, as many of you know, I was in the middle of my trying to conceive journey, my second trying to conceive journey during COVID. And, I couldn't go to work because my studio was closed, like everything else was closed. And I was completely financially dependent on my husband at this time as well, which I really struggled with. I'd always worked, but I couldn't. So at this time, I couldn't work. I couldn't have a baby. I couldn't go and see any of my friends because everything was shut down. We weren't allowed to leave the house. I struggled to be present with my daughter or even enjoy this time that I had with her. And looking back, that was such a beautiful, precious time that I had with her where we didn't have to be anywhere or go and do anything else. And I hated where I was. I felt like I had absolutely nothing to show for my nearly 40 years of life. And it took so much healing work for me to realize that progress can be defined by so many things. The fact that I didn't get a positive pregnancy test at the end of the month, that did not mean anything about me or my life or my value. I think that progress can be defined by things like emotional resilience, even better overall health. I went from someone who had, I had been sleeping so badly for so long that I needed anti-anxiety medication and sleeping tablets just to get a good night's sleep. I was someone who was so chronically stressed and overwhelmed. My thyroid was out of whack. My cycle was all over the place. I went from all of that to taking no medication and being able to fall asleep easily and stay asleep just by doing some of this healing work and working on myself. And before I got the pregnancy test, the positive pregnancy test. So I think that defining progress by other things and your overall health can be so incredibly empowering. And that is, I think, a lot of the starting points where a lot of my students are like, well, where do I even start? Like, my whole life is a mess. What's the one first thing I can focus on? I'm like, focus on your physical health, because those are the things that give you the reassurance that you're making progress. I think if you look at progress as well in times of a shorter recovery time after disappointment. So when you are triggered, maybe it doesn't take you so long to get back to that feeling of calm and regulation again. Maybe if you have gotten that negative pregnancy test at the end of the month, sure, it brings you down, but you're no longer spending days or weeks really being pulled into those depths of grief. Maybe it's a day and then you're able to move on again. Maybe you have more trust in your body, just knowing that these little signs and symptoms, you can say, okay, I hear you. I'm going to address those. Maybe we need to slow down a little bit more. And just this overarching sense of less panic, less dark cloud pressing down on my shoulders. Measuring progress by all of these things is incredibly empowering and so, so helpful for keeping you sane on this journey as well. And when I was able to celebrate these little things, honestly, this is where my journey started to shift. And if you're listening closely, if you find that when you notice these little shifts that happen really quietly, you're going to feel capable and more in control long before you get your pregnancy test, that positive pregnancy test. So the last thing that I want to go through with this episode with you today, number 6, is that I would find community straight away. Community helps keep you sane. So finding your support network, these people, and it has to be more than just your partner. It really, really does. I spoke a little bit about this last week as well. So not isolating yourself, this idea of co-regulation. As human beings and as most mammals, we need community in order to feel fully regulated and in control within our nervous systems. You cannot live your life in complete isolation and be fully regulated. And that's, I think, something that we forget because we love to remove ourselves from the situation. We love to just hide away and put our head under the covers and just hope that it all goes away. But really getting surrounded by people who understand you and can support you through this is so powerful. Being around others who get it changes everything. I always hated this idea of going to a support group. I remember there was this one group in my city that a few people invited me to where people would kind of just sit around and talk about how hard their journeys have been. And this idea of listening to others just talk about how miserable they were, just I couldn't cope with it. I couldn't be around more misery and more sadness. I had enough of that in my own life as well. So maybe that doesn't need to be exactly what you need. Maybe it does help you. Maybe just going and listening to other people's grief and sadness makes you feel less alone. I think early on in my journey that might have helped a lot. But what really helped me was just being with people who understood me without necessarily having to say it. And that's one of the reasons I loved so much my fertility yoga classes, because I could be around all these other women, whether it was online or in person, and I knew how much they understood. And I could do something that made my body feel good. And I was held at the same time emotionally and mentally by the people around me. And this combination honestly was magic. And it's why I think this idea of a group component is really crucial to healing on the fertility journey. So if you are looking at joining any programs, I think if there is one thing I would look out for, it is this group component where you are able to connect with others. And it is, I think, an essential part of all of the programs that I offer here these days as well. So let's recap this episode. If I really wanted to make sure I felt sane and in control and as calm as possible on this journey, I would build a life that wasn't on hold. I would build up my toolkit of resilience and all the things I knew helped me along the way. I would decide in advance how I would handle triggers and when they came up, what I would do. I would set boundaries with others as well as myself. I would redefine what progress looked like, and I would find a community. I want to remind you that you are allowed to keep living your life while all of this unfolds. You are allowed to be happy in these moments as well. And even on the months or the weeks where you feel like nothing is happening at all, your body isn't doing nothing. She is always working with you. Your body wants exactly what you want. She wants to get to that positive pregnancy test and to have the baby as well. Sometimes she just needs a little extra support. So as we start to close up this episode today, I would love to hear your feedback. Have you found this 3-part series helpful? And if you did, I would love it if you could share it with someone, because as we all know, it's really hard to tell who is struggling. So by sharing this episode with people, you may help someone who hasn't yet felt confident to speak out about their own journey. If you have 30 seconds to leave a comment or a quick written review, that would mean the absolute world to me as well. It is the very best way for me to help get this podcast and this information out to as many people as possible. Now, don't forget, I have a bunch of free resources that I always forget to mention. So if you are looking for a way to support yourself, you want to add some more tools to your own toolkit on this journey, the links are in the show notes. So go and grab a copy of those if you haven't already. And you can always send me a message. Love hearing from you. Love hearing from all around the world how you have found this podcast and how you're finding it's helping you too. Now, next week, what I'm going to do is take you through the 3 things that you should focus on in the 2-week wait. And these are also things that are going to help keep you sane, because as we know, the 2-week wait, there is so much build up. There is so much that goes into everything before that, but then there's just this nothingness and this waiting period. So I will really want to help you get through that particular stage of this whole process. So until then, I am sending you all my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility.